In a world where legends rise and fall with every punch, where the roar of the crowd fades, but the stories live on. This is where those stories are told. This is Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. From the blood, the sweat, and the glory, to the controversies, comebacks, and knockouts, we go behind the ring, no fluff, no hype, and definitely no BS. Just the truth behind the fight game. And we've been doing it for over 2 decades. A podcast pioneer, now a Hall of Famer.
Great. What's that ego gonna be like?
And next, the comeback kid.
Wait, isn't he like 90 or something?
Shut up, he'll hear you. The reigning, defending, undisputed, heavyweight champion of boxing broadcasting. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. And it's on now.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to you in part by, you guessed it, my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold, and you can get a copy right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Hey, whether you're live, watching or listening live, or whether you're watching a replay, whether you're listening to the podcast, go to Amazon.com right now. Get yourself the book. And by the way, you could check out BillyCBoxing.com. We had a special. It was a direct from the publisher special going on. I'm not sure if it's still happening or not. Check it out. There's a link up there on BillyCBoxing.com. And if you do check it out and it's not going on anymore, let me know, and I'll see what I can do, because it was a real good price. I think it was like $12 or something. So check that out. But anyway, today's show, as usual, we got a busy show for you. It seems that the 4 major sanctioning bodies. Now, we got a little taste of this last week when Boxing Bob Newman from FightNews.com came on and was giving us a lowdown on what the conventions were like. And he kind of said it. You know, he was saying that the 4 major sanctioning bodies are, basically trying to team up when, they at one point refused to do that, and they seemed like they wanted the division in boxing, dividing boxing, and and only recognize their champs and what have you. But it seems like Boxing Bob mentioned, and it's been in the news ever since he was on the show, that the 4 major sanctioning bodies seem to be teaming up to go against Dana White's boxing league model, but which is actually better for the sport. What do you think is better for the sport of boxing? Having a gazillion champions and all different crazy rankings and, fighters coming out of nowhere? Or would you like to see one champion in each division the way it was back in the old days? We're going to be talking about that a little bit later. I'll be giving you my thoughts as well as the latest boxing news and updates. This week's guest, none other. It's kind of cold up here. Everybody was telling me how warm it was supposed to be, but it's a little chilly in the North Country. But my man Carl King, who's pretty knowledgeable about not only the sport but about how these sanctioning bodies work. So I'm going to get his thoughts on that. As well as his thoughts on not only the league, but the sanctioning bodies and so on and so forth. But first, let's get caught up. I just want to say something. I had gotten a text from a listener, my man Larry, and he says, Billy C., I always watched your show, and you're always looking down. What are you looking at? Well, my screen is right here. So I'm trying to do the screen. I'm trying to communicate with the people in the chat room. Give a shout out to Lovett and Coach. They're both in there first. So if you're watching or listening on another platform, come on over to the YouTube chat room and make your opinions. Let them be heard, and I'll read them. But that's why, I try to look up at the camera as much as I can, but I'm looking down. I write my shows, so I'm looking at that. I'm looking at the chat room. I'm doing so many things, so that's why, Larry. All right, so cut me some slack. All right, but anyway, some fight results that took place this past weekend that I want to talk about. First of all, listen, this cat is the best heavyweight aside from Alexander Usyk in the heavyweight division. Who am I talking about? Agit KBL, who fought this past weekend. Look, I broke down the fight last week, and I admitted that I was giving his opponent, Damian Kimba, no chance. And to be honest with you, he did have a chance. He cut KBL right on the eyelid. It was, I was surprised that they didn't mention and talk about that cut. It was under control and the fight ended, but the truth of the matter was it was in a really bad spot. I mean, if Kimba was able to, use his jab a little more, I mean, the guy had so much height and reach advantage over KBL, which is always the case when AJ KBL fights. He's always seemingly the shorter guy. But listen, it didn't make a difference because at 2 minutes and 36 seconds of the third round, KBL improved to 27-0 with 19 knockouts. Kimba falls to 17-1 and 11 knockouts, his first loss of his career. If you didn't get a chance to watch this fight, I think you should because Agit KBL, in my opinion, is the next best heavyweight aside from Usyk. And to be honest with you, I think he gives Usyk a real good fight. And the reason why I say this is because this guy is tough. He doesn't look it. He doesn't even look like he's in great shape all the time, but he never stops. I mean, you guys hear me talk about Nick Ball. They call him the Wrecking Ball. He's a lighter weight class fighter, but this guy never stops either. He's not as refined as some of the other fighters are, and I don't believe he's as refined as KBL in terms of his style. He just lets his hands go like the Tasmanian devil. But KBL is another guy that is putting constant pressure on his opponents, and he's letting his hands go. He's not afraid to mix them up. He's been down on the canvas before and has gotten back up and won. He hasn't lost yet. He works the body. He's a vicious body puncher, but they sneak in, it seems. And he has a knack for landing shots right past the guard. I mean, right through his opponent's guard. I love the guy, and I really hope that Usyk fights him. I know they're talking about a Wilder fight, and I know they're talking, basically a kind of an easier fight for Usyk because I don't see him having any difficulty with Deontay Wilder, nor any other top fighter. I mean, KBL destroys Wilder too. I mean, Wilder is just, he shouldn't be in the conversation. As a matter of fact, he's has the one punch power, and that's all he's ever had. So KBL wins the fight. There was a couple other fights I'll talk about. It was in the heavyweight division, the co-main event. Granit Xhela and Peter Milas fought. Xhela had the IBF International Heavyweight Champ title, but this was a weird fight. I mean, it was a back-and-forth fight, and Milas seemed to be in better shape. He hurt Xhela during this fight, Xhela was the hometown guy. He was the German fighter, and he started battering him. And this referee, if you saw this fight, this referee, I don't know what he was thinking, whether he was trying to help Shala because he was the hometown guy, the promoter's guy, et cetera, et cetera. But it was terrible. I mean, first and foremost, the Shala's opponent, Peter Milas, had him in all kinds of trouble. He was staggering around. He was clearly out on his feet. And Peter Milas points to him, looking to the referee to stop the fight. And the referee didn't. So Milas said, okay, landed one more shot. And he was out. And his head smashed against the canvas. And he was trying to get up. And the damn referee was ready to let him continue until his own corner jumped into the ring. And they had thrown a towel in. And the referee was like, I don't know if he didn't see it, if he was ignoring it, whatever the case was. But he didn't stop the fight until that happened. He counted all the way to 10, even though, Granit Xhela was already out. I mean, when he went down that time, because he had been down before in the fight, it did not look like he was. As a matter of fact, when he was down the first time, they should have waved it off. But they didn't. But at the end of the day, Milas wins the belt that was on the line, an Intercontinental belt. He's now 20 wins and 1 loss. The official time was 1 minute and 29 seconds of the 10th and final round. And Granit Xhela loses for the first time in his career. He's now 20 wins, 1 loss with 16. I'm sorry. Milas is 20 wins, 1 loss with 16 wins coming by knockout. And Xhela loses for the second time in his career. He's now 18-2 with 7 knockouts. In another strange fight on the card, Nelson Berchelt is actually scheduled to fight in another 2 weeks, but he got a call on the Wednesday before the fights, which was Saturday, because they had an opening, and they threw him in with Wilburn Pantanin, and this was a one-sided fight. Why Wilbert Pantanin's corner even let him continue? He took way too many shots in this fight. He was game, and he stayed on his stool between the 5th and 6th round. Berchelt is still undefeated at 10-0 with 7 knockouts, and Pantanin falls to 7-7 with 4 of his wins coming by knockout. In another fight, now I'm mentioning this fight on this card because of what I'm going to be talking about a little later about the belts and how many people are walking around claiming they're the world titleists and everything else. Well, in the WBC, Jadier Herrera, he's ranked number 1. He's a Cuban fighter who fights out of Dubai right now. And he fought the number 3 ranked, and this is ranked by the WBC, Ricardo Nunez out of Panama. And the belt that was on the line was the vacant interim WBC World Lightweight title. Here's the thing. Herrera ended up winning the fight. The fight was waved off at 2 minutes and 15 seconds of the 8th round. Nunez was in serious trouble, but he went down and he was in trouble. But I don't know if the fight should have been stopped. And Herrera had gone down in the first round. So, when I look at this fight, and Herrera is now the interim champion, and he's actually in line to become the WBC lightweight champion should Shakur Stevenson beat Teofimo Lopez at the end of the month and decide to stay in the super lightweight, junior welterweight division. So it's going to be interesting to see. But my point here is that I don't believe, and no disrespect to Jadier Herrera, but I don't think this kid is a championship caliber fighter. And this is my problem that I'm going to get into in a little bit later. You got these guys that are fighting for world titles, guys that are ranked that have no business being ranked, boys and girls. I mean, we talk about safety in the ring, and they are trying to implement rules and stuff to protect the fighters. But you know what would protect the fighters even more than rules and different gloves and all these other safety features? How about making the fighters fight and learn the trade of boxing before you stick them in a meaningful fight? I mean, the problem is none of them fight anybody up to that point. Herrera didn't have anybody to the caliber of Nunez, and I'm not so sure that you could really say that he dominated the fight and he looked so good doing it. I don't think this guy Herrera is going to go anywhere. I think he's fun to watch. He's got some great hand speed. He's in good shape. But somebody's going to destroy this kid because he doesn't have very good defense, and he showed. And again, I'm not downplaying or upplaying Nunez's power, but Herrera was dropped. He got back up, and you could, the announcers are trying to call it a flash knockdown. It landed flush on the dude, and he went down. You get somebody that's got a little more pop than Nunez and lands flush, like it looks like they're able to. This kid's going to get hurt. But in any way, former heavyweight champion Tyson Fury, his younger brother fought on the card, Roman Fury, and he fought the tough game Kevin Greenwood, and they ended up stopping the fight at 2 minutes and 52 seconds of the fourth round. Fury improves to 6-0 with 3 knockouts, and Greenwood is now 6-12 with one single knockout. My opinion on Roman Fury, this was the third fight I got to see of him. He seems to be getting better, but let me tell you something. If you've ever watched Tyson Fury, I've watched Tyson Fury throughout his career, so I've seen some changes with his punch delivery and stuff like that. But this kid, Roman Fury, Tyson's brother, he fights just like Tyson Fury, except he's not as big. I mean, truthfully, if I was him, I'd probably want to fight at the cruiserweight division. I mean, it looks like he should be able to make 199 pounds with no problem. I forget what the weight was, but it wasn't a heck of a lot over 200, maybe 215 or something like that. And he had a couple of Dunkin' Donuts around the midsection. But the way he punches the way he releases and lands his jab, just like Tyson Fury, and the way he keeps his hands down, just like Tyson Fury, that's obviously something that Pops Fury teaches them. But I don't know, man. I mean, Tyson Fury got away with it because how tall he is and how, just an overall big guy. I'm not so sure Roman Fury could survive any length of time like that. One other fight I want to mention, and I like to tell you guys who I think you should keep an eye on, right? Young fighters. Well, this is a heavyweight. He's a German heavyweight fighter, Nelvili Tiafek. And, he was in a fight. He was in there with the perfect opponent, okay? He really was. Pytov Siwik out of Poland was just very happy to be there. And after he lost, because he was stopped in the second round at just before the end of the second round, actually a minute and 50 seconds. And he drops to 9-6 with 8 knockouts to Siwik. But Tiafek, he's now undefeated, 3-0 with 3 knockouts. Now, here's why I think you should keep an eye on him. This guy, even though he was fighting a much lesser quality opponent, this guy has the skills. I can see the skill set in him. Number one, he's got a mean streak. He's focused on his opponent. Siwik had it was like he was trying to be buddies in there, and Tiafek wanted nothing to do with that. That's number one. Seawick was complaining about some shots behind the head during the fight, and it did not change Tiafak's approach at all. That's number one. Number two, he seems to have a really good jab, a snappy jab, a powerful jab. And now, granted, he was much bigger than this guy, but he really looked polished to me for a now 3-0 professional fighter. He had a good jab. He sets his punches up really well, and when he lands his power shots, he's landing them flush. Now, again, he could have been looking real good against Seawick, but I can see the skill set. It looks like he's got good footwork. Looks like he's got good movement overall. His jab was nice. I loved his jab. Big guy. He's a big guy. Keep an eye on him. He's going to be a guy that I think we're going to be talking about in the near future. Another fight. Dalton Smith is now the new WBC World Super Lightweight Champion after he beat Subriel Matias in Brooklyn, New York, this past weekend. The bottom line was in the fifth round, Dalton Smith, really started throwing an ass beating on Matias, and he went to the canvas. And then a couple seconds later, he that was the end. It was 2 minutes and 24 seconds of the fifth round. Smith is undefeated now, 19-0 with 14 knockouts. He's the new WBC Super Lightweight champ. And Matias only loses for the third time in his career. And this was the first time he was ever stopped in his career. Matias drops to 23-3 with 22 of his W's coming by knockout. In a bare knuckle fight that took place at Bally's in New Jersey, there was some decent fights on there that were entertaining. The co-main event was the fight of the night. Martin Brown and Bobby Taylor fought, and Brown won by the doctor stopping the fight at the beginning of the fifth and final round. Tommy Turner, he knocked out Nathan Mitchell in 32 seconds. So it was there was another heavyweight, Nate Roberts and Terrell Ursey, had people going crazy, and Ursey got the second round stoppage on that one. So I'm starting to get into that a little bit. But in any event, okay, so Zuffa Boxing, Dana White, he's they're putting their first card. There's one of three that are going on, and this one's going on in a couple of weeks. January 23rd will be their first event of 2026, and it's going to be Callum Walsh, who's 15-0 with 11 knockouts, going up against Carlos Ocampo, who's 38-3. It's taking place in Las Vegas, and this will be the first fight. This is a very, whether you follow these weight classes or not, this should be a very entertaining fight. Carlos Ocampo is a tough hombre, this guy he comes to win. He comes to fight. He comes to win. And Callum Walsh, he's still a prospect. Really, I know he's ranked, but he's still a prospect. Ocampo, boys and girls, is not. He's a contender. So it's going to be interesting to see about that. And Ocampo, he's only 30. It seems like he's been around forever. In his last three fights, he had lost in 2023 against Tim Tszyu, but he's won his last three. And when you look at his loss against Tim Tszyu in 2023, the only other two people he lost to was Errol Spence Jr., when Errol Spence actually could fight, and Sebastian Fundora, who's the champ, who beat Tim Tszyu. So I'm looking forward to this. And, Dana White is insisting that Zuffa Boxing is going to become the best boxing, whether you want to call it promotion company, league, whatever, that boxing's ever seen since back in the day when us old guys loved it, even before my time. 8 weight classes. That's what I wish boxing would go back to. Actually, I would throw in the cruiserweights in there, only because how much bigger the heavyweights are. But if you recall, this guy is saying that he's not gonna. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit before, and Dana White's plan is to basically, provide their own title. Okay, so right off the bat, when I heard this the first time, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what we need, another friggin' title, right? I mean, that's my hang up with the sport of boxing right now. And listen, boys and girls, it makes sense. I know that the sanctioning bodies, and even Boxing Bob was saying last week, when fighters fight for titles, they make more money, and promoters are able to promote the fight when there's a title on the line. And a lot of these younger fans that aren't even knowledgeable of the sport, as long as they see a belt on the line, they think it's between two good fighters. Here's the stats. My man Mike Silver, and I mentioned this book. Mike should be giving me a cut from these books. And speaking of Mike, we're going to have Mike on. I got to schedule him to come on. I finished his book, When in Doubt, Stop the Bout. What a great read that is. Get yourself a copy and make sure you tell him Billy C sent you. But Mike Silver wrote a book called The Arc of Boxing: The Rise and Fall of the Sweet Science. Now, anybody that's listened to this show for any length of time knows that I've mentioned this book many times. And the thing is that in this book, the main scope of the book, it's a statistic book, and the main focus on the book is comparing the older eras, like, in the 40s, with the modern era in the 2000s, right? And he is saying that, the bottom line is that the fighters were better. Well, people argue that, especially people that, are still trying to convince you that Floyd Mayweather is the best ever, okay? Now, the reason why I agree with Mike, and he backs it up with stats, is number one, there were only 8 weight classes. So when a fighter was a champion, he was the champion of that weight class. There was only 8. Now there's 16, 17, right? So, I mean, right off the bat, that's number one, right? You only have one. So if you're a number 10 ranked contender, you're pretty good. And there was only one belt, right? So it's not like you're ranked number 3 in one sanctioning body and, you're not ranked in another, but some other guy that's not ranked in the one you're ranked in is ranked, and it gets real confusing, right? But one of the most interesting statistics of the book was that he compared the numbers of fighters. And to me, this is the stat that makes all the difference. In the 40s, there was something like 2,500 licensed. Now, I'm giving a guesstimate. So I believe this number is actually lower than what the actual number was. But let's just say there was 2,500 registered professional fighters in New York State alone. In New York State alone. That's not even counting Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and all the other states and countries, by the way. So there was approximately 2,500 licensed boxers in the 40s in New York State alone. And when he compared it in the 2000s, there wasn't 2,500 licensed boxers in the world. So when you look at it that way, and you say, okay, you had so many more fighters, the pool of fighters was that much greater, right? And you only have 8 weight classes, and you only have one title per weight class. And his point is the fighters had to be better. And when you look at their records, okay, not only were they better, it took them, 50, 60 fights before they even were considered for a title. Now you got fighters, and then the argument, and I've made this argument myself for a fighter like Vasily Lomachenko. Well, he had such a decorated amateur career, and he was fighting for a world title in like his second or third fight or whatever, right? And I myself made that excuse, but you know what? I was wrong, and I say that now. It's kind of hard to say wrong. Yeah, but I was, okay. And the truth of the matter is the reason why is because we're seeing it more often today with some of these young fighters that had successful boxing careers as amateurs, just not making it in the pros. And as this argument is being carried on, you got the sanctioning bodies now saying, that Zuffa Boxing wants to ruin the aspirations of fighters being champions. Well, if what you're saying is that they're ruining the aspirations because it's so much easier to get a title when there's a million titles out, is that better for the sport? I don't know. But I'll tell you, a guy that might know, and I know he's going to have an opinion on it, is my main man, Carl King, and he joins us right now. What's up, Carl?
Hey, Billy C., my man.
Hey, Carl, before I start, I got to give you props, bro.
What?
Hurricanes, brother. The Hurricanes.
Well, you ain't seen nothing yet, man. We're going to shock the world Monday night.
Listen, look, I was nervous. I thought we were going to have to play you. I'm an Alabama fan. And we looked terrible. I mean, they look like, they look like my other team, the Jets, but Indiana looks good, but Miami seems to be playing with something else, and I can't wait for that game.
Oh, it's going to be a great one, man. Listen, this reminds me of the first national title the Hurricanes won when they went up against that powerhouse was Nebraska at the time. And they were huge underdogs with Bernie Kosar was the quarterback. Remember in them days? And Miami pulled it off. So we've been underdogs throughout this whole playoff. So I think the country's in for a big shock. Hurricanes win their sixth national title on Monday.
It's funny. They kind of snuck in because they had all those sanctions against them for so long. They kind of like people forgot about them, but. There's a bunch of people in the chat room saying, Coach, and love it, saying hello to you. So just passing that along. But
give my best, fellas.
They hear you. He's saying, you guys heard him. But anyway, I'm looking at them like they're here. They're typing, But
you said Sam Levitt?
What's that?
Who did you say that was?
We have right now. I see Coach and Lovett that just mentioned it. Yeah, but anyway. All right. So I don't know if you've been keeping up with this, but it's been bugging the hell out of me. And I've been going back and forth each way, Carl. And I know I didn't give you much info on what I wanted to talk about. And I did it purposely because I know that I'm going to get your honest opinion. So,
thank you for that, huh?
Well, come on, man. I wouldn't expect anything else from you. Come on.
Okay.
But, I mean, you know that. But, okay, so Zuffa Boxing, Dana White, UFC, he's very successful with that model. And to be honest with you, I thought a lot of the promoters, and especially over the last 15 years or so, maybe more, tried to emulate that model by just basically closing out their promotional company. In other words, not crossing the lines, fighting another fighter with another promotional organization. They kept to themselves, and it really didn't work. We had boxing all broken apart, and with all the titles and interim titles and all that. Well, what Dana wants to do is start some kind of a league. I have my opinions of how and why I think it will work. But now, all of a sudden, the sanctioning bodies, they're teaming up and they're trying to sell the fact that this is terrible for boxing to have only, them, which incidentally, they're going to have their own championship. So in a sense, they'll have one title for each weight class. And the sanctioning bodies are upset because they feel they're trying to sell it like they're screwing the fighters because they're not going to have a chance to fight for belts. I don't look at it that way, and we'll get to talk about that now. But the one thing that I'm going to pass it over to you off, and I want to leave this last statement because I want it fresh in Carl's mind,
Okay.
is the fact that the sanctioning bodies make their living off the sanctioning fees from all these belts, right? So the way I look at it, brother, is that the biggest fear they have isn't that the league will be successful, isn't that Dana White and Zuffa Boxing is going to be successful. What they're afraid of is they're going to loosen their claws out of the sport of boxing and lose some financial money with the sanctioning fees. What's your thoughts on this whole battle that's going on?
Well, to be honest with you, I've been an advocate for the organizations for a long time. Since if we go back to, I'm gonna go back to 1977. My father was doing a United States Boxing Championships, the USSB on Wide World of Sports, fighting in these various Army bases or military bases. In fact, it was military, not just Army, but and we used Ring Magazine at the time was the Bible of boxing, and their ratings were the only ones that mattered. Well, that tournament became scandal-ridden when a guy named Johnny Ort was, getting people in for, finagling with the rankings and whatnot. And it turned out to what was a great idea turned out to be scandal-ridden and debunked. So at that time, all boxing went to the organizations. And at that particular time, Billy, it was only the WBC and the WBA. So, and they gave kids an opportunity, something to strive for, to fight for. And it was the first time in my life that I witnessed the sport going global. I come up with the football fan, basketball, and all that, which is all national sports. In 1977, I realized that this is a global sport, and you need these world organizations to kind of, to be one to monitor all these various fighters in these various parts of the world. So I've been a fan of theirs for a long time. I do, however, feel that we have since then had too many governing organizations, and any of us, you and I included, can start one tonight if we chose to. And, so it does affect the rankings, okay? And from what I understand about Dana and this new company is that they want to use Ring Magazine, which is tied to the Turk Al-Sheikh. And, so I'm not sure how credible those ratings are. It's been a long time since we used Ring Magazine rankings and whatnot. I'm sure they'll suffice. But my point simply is that these governing bodies, the WBAs, WBCs of the world, have done tremendous things for the sport of boxing. And I remember the sport going through this phase where fighters were throwing the belts in the garbage. I don't need this belt because they networks was calling them the alphabet soups and all of these various things. But what that did was, you take away from a child's dream. Was he dreaming as a kid to be the heavyweight champion of the world, or was he dreaming as a kid to become as rich as possible? And chances are, kid might have dreamed for both. So I'm thinking, my line of thinking is that I'm going to be supportive of the organizations. I've seen how one kind of thing transpired when when Ring Magazine was Ring Magazine back in the day. And when you just got one promoter, well, I mean, we literally did this 40 years ago. We had a majority of fighters and they all fought each other type of thing, except for some big fights. The Ray Leonards and Durans was a DK and Bob Arum co-promotion, various things like that through the years. So promoters can work together, but I think in this day and age, we have a lot of fighters that are predominantly living abroad in Europe, Eastern Europe, and so forth. And I think that demographic is what changed, the sport kind of changed the rankings, because there's very few people that can follow some of these Eastern Europeans through their amateur careers and so forth and so on. And they become more prevalent now. So I think that's, takes a yeoman's duty to be able to do that. So there's some pros and cons, but I kind of think that boxing, being the traditional sport that it is, when we oppose women getting into boxing, we oppose various changes. Some people, are still for 15 rounds. I would be a proponent of that. 15 rounds was that round 13, 14, and 15 made all the difference in the world in title fights back in the days. Now you don't have that. So the sport has evolved to what it is now. But I think in order to maintain this global continuity, that these organizations are vital, So I would be on their side as opposed to saying that what Dana and his company is going to do would be the right way to go, even though they want to cut everybody else out. So that would include me. So I cannot be for that.
No, it wouldn't have cut you out. So the thing is that, all right, let me comment on the Ring Magazine, because you're right. That's changed an awful lot. Back in the day when Ring Magazine, it was the Bible of boxing, it was non-bias, I think, right. At one point. But then when it became owned, and I think I noticed it blatantly when Oscar De La Hoya's Golden Boy bought it, all of a sudden all his fighters are ranked in the ring. And I started not even paying attention to it anymore. And I feel to a degree that Turki Al-Rashid could be doing the same thing. But when I look at the league concept, and you say to yourself, okay, how could it work? What's Dana White thinking, right? You got, just like you mentioned, the four major sanctioning bodies. Even if we just took out the two oldest ones with WBC and WBA, the truth of the matter is that those fighters, the champions of those organizations, those sanctioning bodies, they're not going to go fight for some new belt, because they already have value and they've already created value in themselves. So Zuffa Boxing's not going to get them. But what I see happening, and I've said this on the show, is that by working with what's his name, Turki Al-Rashid, they are developing a lot of young fighters, Carl. Fighters that, we might not have heard of, because you hit it on the head. A lot of fighters, not only are they from other countries, but we're getting a lot of fighters from, the United States and even the UK that are going to these other places to train and be met. Buddy McGirt, I think, has been over there for a while training. So I mean, there's opportunity. So what I'm seeing but what I'm seeing is all these young fighters, Carl, if they sign them up now, what they're doing is they're creating the pool of fighters that will be the future of boxing. Because remember, if they can lasso all the younger fighters that don't have titles, they don't have, how it goes, before a promotional company is going to sign you, you got to be established. Well, how do you get established? You got to get some wins. How do you get some wins? You got to fight the right opponents, all those things, so by the time a guy is 12, 15 and 0, he's already tied in with a promotional company, hopefully,
Right.
and even a sanctioning body. So he's kind of being guided in that way.
But I think, Billy, I think you just touched on a point that I consider to be one of boxing's major problems, which is the lack of this developmental stage boxing.
Well, this is my point. The point is that this league and the way the model works is that the fighters are going to actually fight tougher fights earlier on. Now, from a manager's point of view, from when you have your manager's hat on, you're saying to me, well, I don't want that. I got to keep my fighters. I got to keep my fighters intact because I want to fight for a title. But my problem is what we're getting. Not only do we have a diluted pool of fighters globally, even though it's become a global sport, there's still a lot less fighters out there than I would like to. I would like to see a lot more. Not only are we dealing with that, but we're dealing with young fighters fighting easy fights. So the development of those fighters, which as well as anyone, most of the time it takes place in the ring, fighting a professional fight, learning on the job, not just in sparring, not just in the gym. So we're not even seeing these guys develop until they have some kind of trinket around their waist. I think that this league could change that. I think it's a double-edged sword, Carl, because the points you make about the fighter, their dream, having a belt, basically paying for. The way I look at it now is they're paying. They're let me rephrase my wording. They're finagling their way into the rankings, and then they're, when they fight for a title, there's sanctioning fees involved, right? If this other league all of a sudden has, true fighters that are rising to the top, like back in the day when there was only 8 weight classes and number 9 guy fought the number 8 and they moved up the ladder to fight the champ. I think it might be better for the sport. That's why I'm starting to get, favorable to it.
Well, you know what? It could be beneficial to the sport in a way that kind of much like baseball has, the minor leagues. We failed to develop fighters, recently.
100%. That's my point. Yeah.
And exactly. So what happens is you get a kid, and he has to fight on undercard of a major show until, and that takes a lot more time to do that, to get to where you're in position to become rated or fight for the world title or even become a world champion. I think that's a longer route, as opposed to, well, if American fight fans were more supportive of the sport, much like when you go to the UK, I don't care what British fighter is fighting, you're going to sell out. They are very supportive of the sport of boxing, and they come out and they buy tickets, they buy beers, they buy all that stuff and support the sport, where you got guys here, that they can't even attract their own neighborhood.
No, not only that, but the UK fans, they don't bail on their fighter if they lose.
Exactly. I mean, they have a completely different mindset, kind of like what we had years and years ago when boxing seemed to be a way out of the barrio, a way out of the ghetto. A kid could put on a pair of gloves and if he's real talented, man, in 5 or 6 years, he can, become a millionaire. Nowadays, that's not the case. That's happening in football. That's happening in college sports with the NIL deals. It's happening in basketball. So when you ask yourself, what would you rather your 12-year-old son start to become, whether it's a boxer, baseball player, basketball player, football player, I'm sure boxing is going to be at the lowest ring of that totem pole, because there's no more, you're not getting the multi-million-dollar signing bonuses and a 5-year guarantee, these multi-50, $60 million contracts that some of these basketball players, football players and even college players that get millions of dollars to stay in school. So that part of it is missing out of the sport of boxing. So my point is that if we had more developmental shows and a way to get that to the public vis-a-vis television, vis-a-vis some kind of streaming app that makes it easy for folks to see a fight, we can go back to those days. But right now, it just seems to me that networks, streaming services, and boxing fans over here, they only want to see the number one guy in the world versus a guy that can either compete with him, or they'll get a guy that has a lot of followers on YouTube.
Well, yeah, but see, okay, so you're right, and that's why the other countries do so well, because they can still sell tickets. What you're referring to is 100% correct, and I refer to those types of shows. Those are the club shows. Those are the club shows that you're building up a fighter, and not only that, like back in the 40s and 50s. Well, it goes way back, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. You'd have these guys, and because now this is favoring my thoughts here, because there was only 8 divisions. Fighters it was a trade, man. You know that boxing was a trade. The trainers were teachers, and they knew the sport of boxing because they started carrying a spit bucket. Then they were amateurs. Then they were fighters. Then they became trainers. Now you have a guy. I could be the head trainer. I've done everything in the sport of boxing except training, but I could spend $50 for a license tomorrow and be the head trainer in a fight. Okay,
Don't forget the towel over your shoulder.
That's it. I can do that, and I can spray water on him. But and then I get the title. But my point is that these club shows, which were the backbone, not only to introduce people to the fighters, but they created rivalries. We used to be able to have a club show in a town that was 20 miles away from another town, and each town had their fighter, and they would fight, and one time they fight in their town and another time,
right.
And that's what developed the followings. We don't have it anymore. Why? Because we don't have as many fighters, Carl. And
that's my point.
I know that's why the promoters can't afford to do a club show anymore with all of the especially New York. I mean, I know New York, New Jersey, Nevada, the medicals and everything are so expensive. I mean, and then 4-round fighters now are demanding, big bucks to fight. Nobody wants to fight anybody. I mean, it's very hard to do the smaller shows.
It's very difficult. So in that particular sense, I can see where a league would be beneficial in producing those types of fights. But I think in the long run, Billy, you're going to have these organizations doing, I don't think they're going to fold up their tent, so I think that you're going to have that group of fighters, and then whatever's developed by Dana White and his crew. I just don't think that that's the answer to boxing's problem.
We know what drives it, right? Money.
Yes.
Let's be real. Okay. So it's the money, right? So now, right now, it's easy to say, well, I mean, if me and you had a fight and we had a chance to fight for a WBC belt or one of the 4 major belts, and the fight was offered to us, of course we're going to take it, right? Now, but if 5 years from now, 7 years from now, when all these guys, these top guys that are demanding, big paydays and titles and all of that, now they're not fighting anymore. And the majority of the younger fighters went to this league. Why? Because they're paying the younger fighters more, because they're risking more. And it's a league so that they have some other things. They have, they're promoting retirement and medical insurance and things like that. So it might be more enticing for a younger fighter who, let's face it, these younger fighters, a lot of the kids that I've talked to that are fighting they're no dummies anymore. I mean, it's not like the kid has no choice. I mean, I had a guest on here from out west a couple months ago. He's a college grad. He's investing all his boxing money in neurological research to help fighters. I mean, this is a smart kid, and he's fighting.
Right.
He's a middleweight, So I just think that it won't be that. I think that the telltale is going to be down the road, 5 to 7 years.
Well, I agree, but you got to look at it like this too. I don't believe that one group, whether that's Dana White and his group, DKP, Bobby, can facilitate the entire sport of boxing. So how many fighters is this league going to have, and how often are they going to be able to fight each individual fighter? Because what's the biggest complaint that you get from guys that's trying to get there, that can't afford financially to take 6 months, 8 months off in between fights, a year off, fight once a year? You can't do what Floyd Mayweather did, fight once a year, because you're not going to be making $100 million that he was making to last you all that year. So what happens when guys sit around and their bills are coming in every 30 days like the rest of us, and they're not able to take care of that because, well, you just fought, and your next fight's going to be in 3 months or 2 months. I mean, with no other way to go about getting a fight, I just think that's going to create that kind of bottleneck too. Is I've never seen a fighters that don't have some kind of complaint, disgruntlement of some sort.
Well, that's the problem with all of boxing. They don't fight enough.
Exactly.
And here's the thing, a fighter fights 4 times a year. They're winning Fighter of the Year award. Okay, even young fighters, when you're building them up, they're not fighting every month. If this league with the money that's behind the league, Carl, if these guys can put on show after show after show, and they're treating to like this fight that, this first one that he's doing in January, next week, January 23rd, Carlos Ocampo is taking on Callum Walsh. That's a good fight. It's not a title fight. Callum Walsh is a young prospect who's 15-0. But Carlos Ocampo, we know him. I mean, this guy's been around at 38-3. This is no layup fight for Walsh, and it seems to be an opportunity for Ocampo. So if they can produce matchups like this that the fans pay for, that it's going to boil down to that, right?
What, Billy? I think it boils down to this. I think it all boils down to the television outlet. Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they're doing this with Netflix. So
no, they have multiple stuff. Yeah, they're going to have the Zone. They have this first one is on Paramount Plus. So yeah, they've been able to sign. That's a key part of it. Getting those deals.
Exactly. So it's the same thing. I think here in the States, it's like it used to be if you wanted to find out who's fighting Saturday, it wasn't a difficult thing. Now you might find out who's fighting Saturday. Now you got to figure out where you can see it, as Paramount Plus. I mean, it's no continuity in that is my point. Like Netflix has a subscriber base, so they certainly can afford it. Put on event. They're not, you're not looking for the $69, $79 per customer to pay for the fight and pay-per-view. They have the subscriber base that pays them anyway. So it's just a matter of them making a strong calculation as to what that's worth.
Yeah, but wait a minute. What it's worth is it's almost like the old style. Let's revert back to what you just said with the club shows, Carl, Because
Yeah.
how did a club show be successful? You had to hit the pavement, knock on the doors, sell advertising, create a program, do all of that stuff that nobody does anymore because now fighters, they promote themselves. Promoters don't promote anymore. The fighters promote themselves on social media.
Therein lies the problem.
Well, here's something that's interesting. And my man John is in the chat room, and he's going to agree with me. So now you do like what they did with Netflix, and you put your show in front of 33 million viewers, right? Now, guess what? The advertising dollars become an issue. Now a good promoter can go out and obtain advertising
Right.
dollars for a show like that. So I mean, there's there's so many pros and cons right now, and both of us are going back and forth. And it seems like I agree with you with the sanctioning bodies today. But if this league does it the way I have a feeling Dana White's going to do it, if you and I are on this show, hopefully we will be 5 to 7 years from now, we'll be talking about the league instead. The sanctioning bodies could play nice. It could be. I came up with a way of having a league years ago on this show with all 4 major sanctioning bodies. As long as they played nice, it could work, and it would be similar to.
But they didn't play.
They what?
They didn't play nice back then.
No. But listen, I always use this as an example. Your pops, Don King and Bob Arum. Let's face it, they weren't the best of buddies. As a matter of fact, they couldn't stand each other until they both hit 90. But the truth of the matter is when the fights came, they put that aside and they made the fights. They didn't do that here.
They also could have. Imagine had they teamed up and just partnered up. They would have had the Sherman Antitrust Act coming at them. You know what I mean? It was that dominant during the 80s and so forth, and moving into the 90s. My thing is, I don't believe these organizations is going to fold up, and I don't believe other promoters who are going to be excluded from this league is going to say, well, okay, it's over with. I'm done. Let me find another line of work. I don't believe that's going to happen.
No. I don't believe that the other promoters are going to be locked out long term.
No, I don't think
what's that?
I don't think they can be.
No, they can't. And once they see that the value, it's again, Carl, it's about the money. Once we start to see what fighters are making and what kind of viewership numbers they're having and how often, just like all these points you made, how often they're on, the promoters are going to go. And then now it's not going to be about the belt. You see, that's what drives it now. The
Right.
belt, the sub belt, the international, the intercontinental, the Ichiachi, the Uchi belts, all these belts. And then the promoter says to the fighter, hey, well, you can fight for this Asian belt, we got to
Why is that, Billy? Let's think about that for a minute, because the belt represents a bump in salary, and then
but what if they're getting a bump in salary without it? That's my point.
what's that?
But my point is that the league will be in a position to give the bump in salary without some trinket. Did Floyd Mayweather, when boxing, when you get to a certain point, it doesn't matter if you have a belt. Floyd Mayweather could make millions of dollars whether he was fighting for a belt or not.
But
Mike Tyson, same thing,
I understand, but when they're not there, when the fighter no longer has the title, what does he say? I want to get my title back. He doesn't say I want to get back in the ring so the world can see me again. It's I want my title back. So that little trinket is much like a Super Bowl ring. Guys don't wear the rings, but man, you don't think they special that they want to play their ass off to get that ring at the end of the day? I agree.
I agree 100%. And I love the fighters and respect the fighters that feel that way, and it's not about the money. But when you look at dilution, that Super Bowl ring, that same comparison I'll use right now, the Super Bowl ring, only one team a year, everybody involved with that one team. I lost your video there, Carl. Gets the ring. It's not like everybody gets a participation Super Bowl ring. So when you get your video back, Carl, I must have lost Carl altogether. And he made a great point about that, but I'm using it against him because the Super Bowl ring that the winners get, only 1 year, one team, right? One division, one champion. You want to get your belt back. But I think, I don't know. There's a lot of pros and cons. Hopefully Carl can get back online here. And I got some questions I wanted to ask him from Coach has got one. And, as far as my man John from LDL TV, appreciate you being in there. He makes a comment about Netflix saying, hey, they're looking for new subscribers. Every subscriber is $25 a month, and they stay 18 months. Okay, we got my man back. Hey, look, if you're going to disagree with me, you don't have to hang up on me. But
no, man, I don't know. A call came in. I'm on my phone talking to you, and the call came, and I tried to get rid of the call, and everything went haywire because I got rid of everything.
Well, the thing was I was throwing the Super Bowl rings back at you, and I was saying
Sure.
I agree with you, but only one team gets one set of Super Bowl rings every year. So to me, I equate that with one champion in a weight class gets the belt. The value of that ring, not everybody gets one. Even the guys that make it to the Super Bowl and they get a ring, those guys, the ones that don't win, get a ring too, but you never hear them bragging about that ring.
No, you're right. You're right. But in boxing, the guy that loses the fight does not get a belt. I mean, it just seems to me that this boxing has been sort of a traditional sport for hundreds of years now. We going back to John L. Sullivan, and he probably even before that. It hasn't changed much. The object of the game is still the same. It went from unlimited number of rounds to a limited number of rounds and so forth and so on. And I just think that that's going to be hard to change. I don't think you're going to be able to look at boxing as we look at the NFL and the NBA.
No, I don't think so, because at the end of the day, there's only two people that are fighting for whatever they're fighting for in the ring. They we hear a lot of we's from the trainers and stuff, but it's always he when they lose, But the bottom line is I don't think it's going to be like that. I just think that it has the potential of getting back to an era when the best fighters rose to the top. And there was never a question who the champion was. There was never an argument because they fought their way to that position.
No, if everyone was involved, if that was the only outlet in boxing, you could see how that could develop into what they would actually become would be another form of a WBA or WBC. They'd have a ranking committee to decide who's ranked 1, 2, 3 to 10, whatever, and who qualifies for a world title fight. All of these things that already has been worked out with these governing bodies, these organizations. I just think that, at some point, look, Al Heyman came into the game, bought up dates, had $500 million to spend, and did kind of tried to do the same thing.
They all tried, and they all failed.
And so my point is, I don't know how much different this will be. It's just a little more money, probably. I I don't think that the UFC model is going to work in the sport of boxing.
Well, I think Al Heyman tried to make it work. I think for the most part they all did. Then came along, the fact that they started playing nice because the sanctioning bodies started being a little more reasonable with unification fights. I think the unification fights are great, but then as soon as the title is unified, as soon as that weight class is unified, they all have the mandatories, and there's a nice little way to split it all up. It's going to boil down to how many people go to the league. And I think eventually what's going to happen is that it is going to work out. The sanctioning bodies could potentially get squeezed out, or they'll cut some kind of a deal with this league down the road where they can have their fighters fight for their titles, but they won't. There'll have to be some kind of deal. I don't know. I don't know how that could work.
That's what makes this subject worth discussing, because it's not going to be a smooth sailing, I don't think, for anybody in this.
No. But a lot of the fighters, it might turn into the sanctioning bodies, even though that they're all worldwide. It might turn into something like location. Like if it's easier for them to have fights in the United States, let's say, all of a sudden all the fighters in the United States are fighting for their belts, but all these other countries are going to Saudi Arabia or wherever. I don't know. He's fighting here. He's fighting in Vegas. He's so we'll see how the cards go. I think it's going to be interesting, and I think it is going to unfold. I have a feeling it's going to lean towards the league. I just do, and I think that a lot.
Whatever it does, I mean, I don't think it can damage boxing.
I think it helped. No. I think that if it fails, it's no harm, no foul, right? If it fails, we don't lose a beat. I think if it succeeds, we gain a better sport. It may not be, when you say, a kid's dream and everything, okay, that's the sad part. Yeah, I agree with that. Not as many people will have belts. Not as, there'll be.
And what happens, Billy, when this league comes up, and the first time one of these fighters accuses Dana White or whoever's in charge of that league of some wrongdoing, much like they did, we all know it's common knowledge what they put on my father. He's the worst thing in the world. You know what I mean? So if my dad was to try to do exactly what they're doing, they would say it's corrupt. It would be all kind of different things.
Well, they are saying that.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not blind to the fact of who I am and what.
No, they're saying that about Dana White.
Well, okay. Well,
I remember when Don was on this show and he was saying to me, Jesus, they blame me for the Lindbergh baby. He said, I'll never forget it. He says they blame me for everything. They blame me for the Lindbergh baby. He says, but
yeah, and see, I don't know if Dana White has experienced any of that in the UFC. Man, it's vicious. That cycle is vicious, and you have thick skin to live in this world, in this boxing world, or this king world is more appropriately, because we get accused of everything, and I just think that as soon as that happens over in a league or with anybody else, it has a snowball kind of effect.
Yeah. So like I said, no harm, no foul. It'll be just the way it is. The only thing it could do for boxing is if it is really, really successful, it'll help the sport. That's what I think.
I totally agree. And I think anything that helps the sport helps boxers, promoters, managers all over the world, just via osmosis, it helps. Because nowadays, there's no more television outlets, there's no more cable outlets that broadcast boxing. So, now this looks like it can turn out to be the end of pay-per-view in a sense, with this subscription-based streaming companies. So, guys like me are looking at not just what the live view is going to be, but how many eyeballs is actually going to see this and replays and things of that nature. It's going to be played over and over and over again.
And that same advertisement for Carl King's management service, whether the fight happens live or whether they're replaying it, is on the show. So
Exactly.
100%. I agree with you 100%. And that's going to be the telltale, and it's all going to come. It's going to grow right now, right in front of our eyes. But we'll see, and as it progresses, we'll have you on and talk.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I wish him well. I'm an advocate for the sport of boxing, period.
Well, listen, I see it attracting. Look, I see it attracting more fighters, and I think that's where it's going to succeed. I think that they're going to be able to develop a pretty big pool of young fighters. Because let's face it, Carl, there's a ton of kids in the gym busting their ass every single day, training in the gym,
Right.
Working construction, doing something, just trying to get a fight. Nobody's spent any time management, or worse, their father's managing them, and they don't want to talk to somebody that knows boxing. They know it
Right.
all, and the kid doesn't get a chance. Or they're waiting to sign some big deal that never comes, and then they lose interest, like every kid does, with anything, So I think it might be a path to getting more people interested.
And one thing that we haven't touched on is all going to come down to how big that budget is.
Well, that's
How much willing to invest in transforming this sport over the next 5 years.
Well, here's the thing.
10 billion.
Well, they've already put in place like minimum dollars per round, something that now they've actually, if you think about that burden falls on a promoter that's trying to do a fight for, building their fighter up. Now those wins that the fighters get is all of a sudden that budget is going up. So I think the pressure is on the other side because this league has funds. I mean, we're talking about the parent company, owns the WWE and the UFC, and plus sprinkle in Turkey Al Rashid. I think there's some money involved, know. So, hey, I got
spend it.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We're gonna know. We're gonna know this year, bro. But I got my man Coach is in the chat room, and he wants me to ask you a question.
Okay.
He says, hey, Bill, ask Carl, how did the Ali Act and its manager-promoter separation fundamentally change your approach to managing fighters compared to the early days of Monarch Sports? That's from Coach.
Well, Coach, first of all, I think that the Muhammad Ali Reform Act was misnamed. It should have been the Don King, Carl King Act of some sort, because it was certainly designed for us and us only. No one else were forced to kind of pay, to abide by these rules. You know what I mean? And there was other families involved and so forth. The Goosen family, the Duva family. I mean, there's a lot that went on, the Giorgino brothers, so you just had that. And what it did for me was it fundamentally didn't change much. It didn't change the relationship that I have with my father. It certainly didn't change my opinion on who I would want my fighters to be promoted by, and that sort of thing. What it did do was made it inconvenience for it made it harder on me to be able to go get these guys. The budget became slimmer. In other words, when I had the help of Papa's pocketbook, that's a little different. When it was mine, well, some adjustments had to be made in order to get these guys. So, but theoretically, man, I think it was designed I think it's a bullshit law. It was designed to separate my father and myself. And I think that having family involved is one thing. My father got me started in this business, but he certainly didn't do the work that I did in order for me to stay here. I had to, I had to have something to say in order to stay. Re-signing guys and this and that wasn't all about because Don King wanted them. I had fighters that wanted me to get another promoter. They didn't like Don King anymore. They upset with Don King. So Carl, can you get me a deal somewhere else? So those type of things happen. But but far and more that the Ali Act came, it was designed to destroy my father and us. That bond, that unity, that power base that was damn powerful too.
Well, if it's any consolation, this league is changing that back so that they can manage and promote and do all those things. It's one of the arguments. It's one of the arguments
because of his complexion, maybe.
Well. The thing is that did it really? I think the argument now is it's hard to say if it's a conflict of interest or not. If the contract can be written in such a way that you can stipulate some things that can or can't be done between the fighter, manager, and promoter with themselves. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be blanketed in, but that's neither here nor there. It was one of my man coach is he comes up with these things all the time, and sometimes he bails me out because you know how it is getting a little older, Carl, and I all of a sudden I'll get to a blank spot. I'm just about to say something. And then maybe if a squirrel went by or a bird flew by, I lose my train of thought, and he gets me back on track, But
well, thank goodness for Coach. I appreciate the question.
But anyway, listen, my man, I appreciate you coming on with this. I know we can keep talking about it for a long time, but I tell you what, let's talk about it as soon as some new news about it happens. He's got 3 fights in a row. Let's see how it happens. Let's see what happens, and keep an eye on him. And one thing I will say, boxing right now with these streaming services, we lost the networks, but I got to be honest with you, brother. There's more fights on now. I mean, I love being able to tune into the fights, on a Sunday or like a Saturday afternoon. And watch it. I just can't stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning anymore.
I would just like to have the schedule on where I can find the fights.
Well, you got to get this. They're not paying me, but the Zone is that you got to subscribe to that.
I got it.
And when you do that, you got the fights. You can watch the replay because some of the ones that are here in the States, they're on at midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning. I go to bed. And then when I wake up my normal time at like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, I watch it as if it's live. I don't know who won. So what difference does it make?
That's the way to do it, man. So well, we'll see how it all plays out, man. I'm anxiously waiting to see how it turns out. I wish him well as a ball promoter.
I'll be talking to you because I might be coming down that way for the Florida event in June. So hopefully we can hook up then. But I'll talk to you well before then.
Sounds good, man. Anytime you need me, you know how to get me.
Yep, and I'm going to be pulling for the Canes, man. There's something about Indiana I don't like. So, and I never liked the Canes either. I'm an Alabama fan. I don't like what they did to the SEC in this bowl. I mean, they beat the hell out of them. I was shocked you beat Ole Miss, but whatever, But
you're gonna be even more shocked.
Good. I hope they make Mendoza have a terrible game so that the Raiders don't pick him and maybe the Jets get a shot at him. All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, bro. Take care.
Take care. That's my man, Carl King, and he. It's kind of like we both were split on it. I mean, Carl made some great points about the sanctioning bodies, especially from a young fighter's point of view, which I got to be honest, I wasn't even thinking of that. I was thinking of the boxing purist thought. But I think he also saw, some stuff that I'm trying to look at. But in any event, yes, and I forgot where my man Joel is reminding me, Triller TV and their pay-per-views, which I love. I watched the last one with the McKillian fight, and I tell you, I love the announcer. I was jealous. I wish I was one of the analysts there because I loved the way they called the fight. It was enjoyable to watch. So if you're not hooked up with Triller, make sure you do that. Some news real quick. Mario Barrios is defending his WBC World Welterweight title against Ryan Garcia. Yes, it's taking place in Vegas, February 21st. I'm looking forward to that one. Ryan hasn't been in the ring. They're giving him a direct shot to the WBC. And this is exactly one of the reasons why I hope that the league works, because I don't think something like that would be allowed to happen. I mentioned Nick Ball. I love this kid. He's the WBA World Featherweight Champion. He beat Raymond Ford. It was a great fight. He is going to be fighting again February 7th in Liverpool against Brandon Figueroa. Figueroa is a tough guy out of Texas. 26 wins, 2 losses, and a draw. So you're not going to want to miss that one. Manny Pacquiao is coming to the Twining Stone on February 28th. I know his son is going to be on that card, and I believe there is going to be some title on it. Elijah Pierce is going up against Lorenzo Parra, which was a fight that was rescheduled from an earlier date, and they will be the main event. And there's some other fights, including a local hometown favorite that I've seen there a couple of times. Bryce Mills is going up against Tobias Green. So we'll see who wins that one. I'm going to be ringside. So if you feel like busting my chops, come on out to that fight, Turning Stone, February 28th, and make sure you say hello. I will be glad to talk boxing with you ringside. Maybe Lovett will come and join me. I told her I would take her to dinner. So come on, meet us at the Turning Stone. I don't know if you heard it, but Moses Ituma is supposed to be the main event against Jermaine Franklin. It was rescheduled to March 28th due to an injury. It was supposed to be taking place at the end of the month, this month, and now it's March 28th. The whole card has been postponed. But there's a lot of other rumors going on because Ituma now has been ordered by the WBA to fight Murat Gassiev for the current regular WBA World Heavyweight Championship when he beat Gassiev, when he beat Pulev. He's also in line for the WBC final eliminator against Lawrence Oakley out of the UK. And he's also been mentioned as a potential opponent for Oleksandr Usyk. So I have a feeling that, money might make this Jermaine Franklin fight never even happen, but we'll see. Speaking of heavyweights, Efa Ajagba is taking on Charles Martin February 14th. Guess what? That's a Zuffa boxing show. It's going to be another one in Las Vegas, and that one will be on Paramount Plus as well. So hey, did you see that this fight is a real good one? I'm looking forward towards. Anthony Kakashi is going to be taking on Jazza Dickens. It's going to be March 14th on St. Paddy's Day in Dublin, which should be really fun to watch. I wish I could be there for that. And it's going to be interesting. Also on that card, Mark Chamberlain. So that's going to be a good one. Jazza Dickens, I like him, man. And, taking on Kakashi that's going to be a good fight. Mark your calendars for that. My man Jimmy Birchfield in CES Boxing is returning February 7th in Cranston, Rhode Island with the Winter Brawl. I would love to. He always has great cards, and these are the club shows that you got to go see. Like Carl and I were talking about club shows. My man Coach is just giving us a quick news break here. Gervonta Davis, Tank Davis, just was arrested again in Miami today. Tank, you're such a silly, silly boy. January 31st, Bare Knuckle Boxing's 50th show is going to be taking place in Miami. I'm kind of liking that Bare Knuckle Boxing. There's a fight this weekend. I don't know where you could see it. It does have some kind of TV. But the only reason why I'm mentioning it, and I'll be breaking down next week, there'll be some good fights the week after. We got the Stevenson fights. I'll be breaking those all down. But there's a heavyweight that I got to see, and I thought he looked promising, and he happens to be fighting on Saturday in Philadelphia. His name is Daniel Pero. He's a fighter out of Cuba, heavyweight. He's 11-0 with 8 knockouts. He's ranked number 70 by the computer. He's not ranked by ESPN or Ring or anything like that. And the IBO's computer, their top 100 program, has him ranked at 69. So I think it would be safe to say that, Pero at 11-0 with 8 knockouts is justifiably put at that number 70, 69, 70. However, the WBA has him ranked at number 7. Can you believe that? I mean, that's the absurdity of the sanctioning bodies. I'm sorry. And that's why, we have these mismatches. But when you look at Daniel Pero, who I like, he's 26 years old, out of Cuba, 6'5". His last fight, he weighs about 240 pounds, 236 pounds. He's an orthodox fighter. Like I told you already, 11-0 with 8 knockouts, 72%, almost 73% knockout ratio. His last fight, in my opinion, out of his whole resume here, was his best win. He won a 10-round unanimous decision over Cesar Navarro, who was 13-2 at the time, was moving up in weight to fight him. But I think that was really the best opponent that he fought. His combined opponent's record, 67 wins, 49 losses, and 9 draws. He's a good fighter to watch. Now, the guy he's fighting, on the other hand, his name is Mario Aguilar. And this is exactly my point, boys and girls, about when you look, especially for you younger fans that may be watching this show, you can't always look at a record, and you can't always judge a fighter by that record, okay? And I'm going to tell you right now that this fighter is a perfect example. Now, he does have losses, but that's not the reason. Mario Aguilar is who Pero is fighting on Saturday night in Philly. He's got a decent record, 23 wins, 10 losses. I mean, it's not, with 19 of his wins coming by knockout, so you would say, oh, he's got some pop, right? And out of his 10 losses, he was stopped 7 times. When you look at his combined opposition, his record, it's not as bad as you would think. As a matter of fact, his combined opponents' records are 211 wins, 171 losses, and 15 draws. But the combined record of the opponents that he beat, which was 23 and wins with 19 coming by knockout, 77 wins, 157 losses, and 11 draws. And of those fights, 6 of them were pro debuts, meaning they never fought anybody, all scattered throughout his fight. He's not rated anywhere. The computer ranks him at number 513, so he's not even on the IBOs. His best win of his career was over Humberto Soto on October 2nd in 2021, and Humberto Soto was 10-1, except it was a disqualification win, so he didn't even beat him. Look, this guy is the only difference between him and a lot of opponents that you see over in the UK is that the opponents in the UK that have, double, even sometimes triple-digit losses know how to fight. They go in there. They don't know how to win, but they know how to fight. They go in there and, they go rounds and they don't get stopped. This guy, he doesn't. He's in there to get stopped by Pero. Pero's going to win by knockout. One last thing I want to mention here. The Virgil Ortiz, Jaron Boots in his fight, we were told that it was going to happen. It's a fight that we want to see. I think that Boots Ennis, in my opinion, is a little – I'm not sold on him yet. I'm just not sold on him yet. He's got all the tools against all the people he's been fighting. But I wanted to see the Virgil Ortiz fight because to me, Virgil Ortiz has been getting better and better. And I thought that this would be a really good matchup and that the winner of this fight would really move on to, take their rightful spot in the division. But apparently it's looking like it's not going to happen. Some of the reasons, Oscar De La Hoya, I saw it on social media. I didn't make much of it because I really didn't get any quotes from a reputable website like Fight News, which I like to go by because it's just news. It's not opinionated stuff. Like I said to Boxing Bob last week, I'm opinionated enough. I don't need to look at a website and get other people's opinions. But Oscar De La Hoya said they're moving on from the fight because he didn't like the offer that Eddie Hearn for Virgil Ortiz made, which I thought was the perfect offer. They offered Oscar De La Hoya Ortiz is Oscar De La Hoya. Ennis, Jaron Ennis is Eddie Hearn's guy. I misspoke. So they offered a 60-40 purse split with the winner receiving 5%. 60-40 is Eddie Hearn suggesting that Boots Ennis is getting the 60 and Virgil Ortiz is getting the 40. I think that this fight should happen, but they should do a 50-50 purse and the winner receiving the 5% bonus. So I think that that's fair, but it would be pretty silly for these guys not to fight. And, one way of getting a fight to not happen is to ask for too much money. And I don't think Boots Ennis deserves a 60-40 split, but I also don't think that boxing deserves Oscar De La Hoya to act so final. 60-40. We are fairly close. You move 10% each way, and you're at 50-50, and then have a winner's bonus. That's all. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for stopping by and watching the show. And remember, I need you to tune in. And don't forget, you know what? If you're watching the show, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like us on social media. You can go to BillyCBoxing.com and get all the links to the Facebook pages. We got a couple of different Facebook pages. Our podcast, the YouTube stuff, the X or Twitter, or formerly Twitter, and all the other platforms we're on. So like us, friend us, follow us, subscribe, all those things, and we appreciate it. Okay? Listen, make sure you tune in next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.